And as far as time goes, it's nice to have a preparation. Do you want to be set for 3 months, 6 months, or up to a year? And depending on the time frame that you're looking at, will depend on what you're buying. You know, some stuff doesn't even freeze very well for a year in this case. Some things you're going to have to consider is your energy needs. In which case you might want to have some spare gasoline. Diesel fuel is great. Diesel fuel, I'm going to get into that in a minute. You might want to look at other energy needs like firewood if you have to heat your place. Being in winter, it is summer now, but any lighting needs you may want. You may want to have some batteries, you know, basic stuff. First aid, you know, it's always handy to have basic first aid stuff. I'm going to get a little more detail on these masks. These are what they call an N95 mask. These are not just a normal dust mask. I think you can see that here. Okay. These are actually specifically designed for dust, but that's what I use them for when I'm doing renovations or whatever. But these are, I believe, to count out 95% of any bacteria and viruses. Is that?
It's supposed to, yeah.
And viruses, okay. It's okay. I'm just reading here. At least 95% filtration efficiency against solid and liquid aerosols that do not contain oil. And I think it talked about some viruses and that too. Keep in mind, none of these things are actually foolproof, okay? But, you know, it's not a bad idea to have a few of these around anyways, okay? You can get these. We bought these at what they call the TSC store. They are in the United States. I'm not sure if throughout the entire United States. Farming supply store, hardware stores carry them. That's usually where you're going to find them. You might get them at your pharmacy too. Now, other things you may want to consider. This is another little branch avenue I'm taking here with herbs. Okay, some of you may be familiar with herbs, some are not. You may want to look into a naturopath. There are herbs that apparently work very well with flus that unfortunately the main medical scoff at, but they do have a history of working. I myself am not a herbalist, and I'm not as familiar as my wife is on this, but I've actually tried a few things she's given me before, and they actually are effective. Are you able to give a little bit of a list here? What type of herbs would somebody want to have if they felt like they had a flu symptom to help them?
As far as having flus or colds, my favorite herbs that I like are elderberry, echinacea, garlic, and catnip. They all deal well with immune boosting, lowering fevers, and just generally helping your body to heal itself. I would definitely research each one of these myself to make sure you don't have any allergies with these medications, because although herbs are generally pretty safe, just like anything else, you could have a specific allergy to something. So if you're unsure, check with a homeopathic doctor or a naturopath.
Yeah, we want to offer a disclaimer. Like we're saying stuff we believe in, or we wouldn't be saying it, but on the same hand, it should be checked for your own. All
of these are things that I would use with my own family, but that's because I've researched them for my own family.
That's
and
right.
I believe each family should do that. You can take these in different forms. They can be done as teas. They could be done, like with elderberries, you can make a syrup. And that's nice because especially if you have somebody who can't take alcohol, if you have a grain allergy, and you can't take tinctures, because if you're allergic to gluten or anything like that, you cannot take it would make you sicker. So you can take them as teas, or sometimes like as a syrup or as a tincture. Depending on the person and how sick they are, you'll have to judge for yourself and learn what would be the best method to go with.
Okay, some other things we wanted to mention here too, some things people wouldn't think of. If you're on meds, and for any reason the hospitals, even if they get busy, okay, even if they just simply don't have time to talk to you, if you're on certain meds, it may not be a bad idea to see your doctor about maybe getting some extra if you can. And sometimes too a small amount of cash. Always have some cash on handy, because that's always, you can barter that with anybody on the street to anybody in the store for any reason. Not just for a pandemic. Keep in mind, a lot of what I'm talking about is for anything. We had a hydro blackout. Most people remember that. Was it 2003 or 4? 2003? Anyways. So. And the hydro was out for, what was it, 48 hours I think for some people. The debit machines didn't work.
3 days for some.
3 days for some, and debit machines didn't work. We had an ice storm out in Quebec a number of years ago too, and the hydro was out for a severely long time. So what we're talking about here, I'm trying to fulfill this for many things. Okay, now as far as the disease itself, I can't really get too much into it. I'm obviously not a doctor. I did do a little bit of research on Wikipedia. The truth of it is they don't know what they're dealing with yet, so we don't know what we're dealing with yet. Now, as far as I'm going to discuss a little bit here, how did these things happen? How did this one happen? There's already probably been at least 50 videos going around on YouTube about conspiracies with this. Now, I respect everybody's opinion with conspiracies, despite even sometimes if I'm a little sarcastic. I think anybody has a valid point, and there's a few trusted people that we listen to right now that are talking conspiracy. I myself don't get into conspiracies too much unless I have hard evidence for that. But something I personally have been wondering, if this isn't just a natural cycle, what we understand, this can happen naturally, okay? But something I'm just going to throw out there, just a little off topic here, is these genetic modified crops. Nobody really could know for sure what this is doing to a lot of stuff. There was a lot of bees been disappearing, and some people are throwing that to that direction when these GM crops are doing. You got to remember, when they make genetic modified crops, they are messing and playing with DNA. They're changing DNA in the plants. They're putting animal DNA into plants. Some people may not be aware of this. I encourage you to do some looking up to this on YouTube. There's some good videos on what Monsanto's been doing with all their stuff and some of their legal nonsense. It's possible that some diseases are finding it different to mutate. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't confirm this. This is just my little hypothetical suggestion. Some people are talking conspiracies. You know, there's other things out there with the New World Order, and there's talk of this reducing the population for 80%. I may not always agree with it. That doesn't mean I mock it. You're welcome to look into that too. One thing while we're on the subject of conspiracies, I don't know if you can get a good picture of this. This came in the mail. We do get a little bit of an allowance here in Canada when we have kids. The government, actually, this is not the first one we've got, has actually been promoting people to stock up for 72 hours for emergencies in a flood or a power outage or an ice storm. Would you be ready to take care of your family for at least 72 hours? And they have a website you can go to called getprepared.ca if anybody's interested in looking at this. I imagine they might have some suggestions there on what type of food, you know, that I may not be able to cover everything here in a short video. 72 hours, well, yeah, that's about all it is good for, is for short term. This isn't going to work in the case of a long-term layoff or an actual really devastating thing like a natural disaster or an economic chaos, war, pandemic, okay? Now, having said all this, let's say you're dealing with panic, which I find sometimes can be an issue. When SARS, or was it SARS and H5N1 bird flu came out, a lot of stories my wife was getting was down in the States, a lot of the shelves started to pretty well be empty. For those of you that went through hurricane season, you probably are more familiar with how this works than I am, and I appreciate any comments. Anything you can post on this with your experience would be helpful to many people right now. We ourselves, in this particular family, we have never actually faced any natural disaster this way. We have faced troubles, but most of our troubles have been injury. Once I was injured on a farm and layoff, and we've had some struggles, so we have experience. But with the really instant, bang, everything's fine, and then 24 hours later it's not. That kind of stuff, I guess, we don't really face up here like you would in your hurricane area. As far as where this disease has been found so far, from what I understand, it has been spreading. It's been found in New York, Mexico, of course, California. There's been an confirmed case in Montreal. We're hearing different stories that that's in Canada, Texas, and Kansas, from what we understand. We were heard that there was 30 children in New York, apparently. Most of them have gotten better. We also understand this disease is much like bird flu. It seems to be attacking the healthy and stronger people, unlike most flus that get elderly and young children. Now, in the case of where to go to get stuff, I'm getting back here in the case of panic. If you happen to find that, you go in a grocery store, which is most places that's where everybody's going to head first for their supplies, you're going to find empty shelves. I want you to keep in mind there's a lot of things people don't think of that can offer opportunities.